And we're going to be switching gears now to very, very important conversation. June is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. And I think it's very, very important that we have these conversations around mental health, especially with men. Because one thing that I notice, and I think we can all agree on, is men are far less likely than women to seek professional help from mental health challenges, but yet they remain disproportionately affected by issues such as depression, substance abuse, which is really a big issue here in South Africa, and suicide across many societies, including South Africa, traditional ideas of what masculinity is, and that continue to encourage men to quote unquote stay strong and suppress emotions and suffer in silence. In my home language of Sepedi, they say "Monna ke nkulela ka hare." It means a man is a sheep. I don't know, he cries in tender putty, help. But yeah, something like that, which essentially means as a man, you need to suppress your feelings and you shouldn't show any kind of emotions. And the consequences of that are really devastating, not only for men themselves, but also for their families, relationships, and just communities in general. And I like the fact that conversations around mental health are gaining serious momentum here in South Africa and also globally. Experts are calling for a fundamental rethink of what it means to be a man, and how society responds when men are struggling, which is a reality, especially in this day and age. So we asked the question this morning: how do we break the stigma? How do we encourage vulnerability and create healthier models of masculinity? Yeah, tradition and how things have always been done, I think, has its pros, but I think for the most part, especially when it comes to what masculinity is and conversations around mental health, it can be quite polarizing, and it doesn't need to. And we're going to be having a conversation, a very, very important one. And to help us unpack it, we're joined by a clinical psychologist, mental health consultant, and clinical psychologist, Dr. Malebo Mashaba, who will be joining us for this very, very important conversation. Doc, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to News and Views. Really appreciate you giving us your time.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the invite.
Pleasure is all ours, and I want to jump right into it, Doc. I think I opened in the intro that men find it very, very difficult to seek help when it comes to issues of mental health. Why is this the case from a professional's point of view? Why do so many men still find it difficult to speak openly about their mental health and what kind of state it is in?
I like it at the beginning when you started. You spoke about how the society portrays men.
Yeah.
One thing that is powerful is that many men have been taught to be providers or protectors and problem solvers, but very few have been taught how to be human. So as a result, this month, what we do is to remind them that, and also remind ourselves that men need also spaces to feel, to heal, and also to be supported. And men most of the time are often socialized to be strong, independent, and emotionally restrained. So as a result, they struggle silently because they fear being judged as weak. And as a
Mm,
result, we see increasing rates of depression, anxiety, and mostly substance abuse and anger and aggression, which we pick up mostly when we do the gender-based violence awareness. That a lot
mm,
of anger and aggression that comes with it is a result of underlying men's mental health issues that have never been addressed. And
mm,
for example, people will tend to think that mental health only has got to do or affect a particular gender, which will be women. But mental health is not just the absence of mental illness, because it includes emotional, psychological, social, as well as spiritual well-being. So the fact that we are both human, it means there must be room also for a man to be able to say, today I cannot do it, today I need help. So men's mental
mm,
health affects how they think and how they feel and cope with stress, and relate to other people. But as a result, one thing that we've noted is that men experience emotional pain too, but too
mm,
often they express it differently from women. So hence, most of the time you will have a partner, or you will have a husband, and you never realize that they are going through something, because we mostly think that the gender that is mostly emotional are women, of which is that is not the truth.
Very important. Doc, I want to come to a point that you made when you began this conversation. The fact that men psychologically they are programmed, to be just the providers. They don't need to show any kind of emotion, and it has been inculcated, especially as Black people, in our culture and traditions, that should be the norm and standard of what it means to be a man. South Africa is still a largely conservative country. We still follow much of the traditions that are hundreds of years old. How do you begin to change that? How do you begin to change the conversation around men's mental health? What does it mean to be a man? And ultimately try and change this reluctancy from men to seek help and to break away from the traditional ideas of what masculinity is and the societal expectations that have been put upon us.
Yeah, and this one is very important. You know what we encourage most of the time is that we need to start first with our families and communities. Remember, even when in recent days, when we raise our boy child, we tend to be very soft with them, and and I think this is helping because it's going to change the narrative to say not only a girl child needs attention but also a boy child as well. So for families, what we need to do and communities is to learn to create spaces where men can talk without judgment and check in on them at all times. Simple things like asking meaningful questions beyond, are you okay? Because with the background that we have, that this is how they were socialized, that they cannot be seen to be weak or breaking, they're more likely to say, I'm okay, if you just ask a simple question like that. So we need to learn to listen without immediately trying to fix the problem. For example, what we encourage men to do mostly is to try, talking to someone you trust, build a healthy friendships and support system. And we know this is difficult, but another drive that we do during this month and beyond this month is to try and bring awareness to say it is okay not to be okay, and it's okay to break down, because the very same psychological makeup that everyone has is the same makeup that men as well possess. So it's very important that we encourage them to also adopt functional coping strategies, because we know mostly from the increasing rates of suicide that they will be using alcohol excessively and drugs to try and cope. And most of them, even when we do admissions in rehab centers, you find that the presenting symptom like the addiction it's just a red flag to say there's an underlying issue. So they need to learn that vulnerability is a strength, not a weakness as the society portrays it. But also, remember, with this makeup and societal makeup that men supposed to be strong, it's also difficult for us to identify when a man needs help, especially because we don't engage with them as much. We expect men to be nurturing to us as women, but it's a few women that you will find being more nurturing to men and are providing that environment where they can also be themselves. So we need to be on the lookout for signs like increased irritability or anger. I mean, if you have got a partner or you've got a teenager, a teenage boy, you've got a husband, there are patterns that they relate to on a daily basis. Suddenly, when there is behavioral changes like increased irritability or anger, it should be a red flag for you. They withdraw from family engagements or even their friends. And even for sometimes you'll get reports that their work performance, the occupational performance has declined. You need to be on the lookout for that. And some of them, instead of having a decline in their work, some work excessively to try and avoid emotion. Suddenly, someone is moving from one level of promotion to the next. You think that they are highly competent, only to find that that is a coping strategy to try and run away from the emotions. And the common ones will be having difficulty sleeping, feeling hopeless and overwhelmed. So not all depression looks like sadness. Hence, I was saying, I use the example to say some men might, try and excel in the kind of work that they do. They may be overly productive, and you see, and remember, anything physical, we use it to judge that a person is doing well. You might find
True.
someone who's a successful businessman. He's got everything going on well, and you think, no, everything is well with them. One morning we wake up and he committed suicide. And the first
Mm,
question that we'll ask will say, but everything was fine. He was driving this particular car. He owned a mansion and all that. But all those things, they don't resemble one's mental state. So,
mm,
because
mm,
men are often socialized to be strong and independent and sometimes emotionally restrained, it's very important that we know that many men struggle silently because they fear being judged as weak.
mm, mm. And I think that's a very, very important conversation. I think it ties back to this social programming. I mean, we're talking about June being men's mental health awareness month, but in the same breath, right now, as a black man, I can tell you there are hundreds and thousands of young boys who are taken to the mountain, and there's a kind of psychological indoctrination that happens there that influence what a man is supposed to be. And eh, now, in a lot of ways results to what you and I are talking about right now, how men find it difficult to express themselves because of the education that happens there.
Mm, mm, mm,
Is
mm.
there a way to even begin deconstructing tradition, because we'll continue having these conversations every year. Young Pedi men, young Xhosa men, young vendor men from ages of 10 right until 18 are taken to the mountain, and something totally different is happening there. And for some reason, because of culture and tradition, what happens in the mountains is taken more of a gospel than what a Dr. Mashaba, who's a woman on radio, is telling us.
Yeah, you know what? We are really fighting a very long battle, and I think these are some of the things that we also need to take beyond this month where we commemorate mental health. And we know that if in October it will be on mental health, and emphasis only happens then. One of the biggest challenge we have, which is also linked to mental health and men's mental health, is the issue of childhood trauma. I'm glad that you
Uh,
mentioned the issue of this period where young boys are sent to the mountains. There is a whole significant indication of trauma, childhood trauma, that comes from this experience. And while we thought that it is a process where we teach them a particular rites of passage in different cultures, but at the same time, it has that thin line where it also infringed on who they want to be. Because remember, that is a training that takes place there. But at the same time, when they come back, they don't come back to the mountain, they come back to a society which
true.
is dynamic as well. But as a result, then the integration back into the society, it's never monitored. And as a result, we've got a whole lot of childhood traumas that not only come out of domestic, being exposed to domestic violence while you were young, or being abused in any kind of way, but we have cases where the childhood traumas that surfaces from a man who consult at the age of 30, they will be relating the process of going to the mountain as being traumatic for them. And as a
Yeah.
result, they grew up with the anger, because remember, the process as well, it doesn't allow for flexibility, because this is a project, this is a program, this is what you have to do, no questions asked.
Mm,
But at the same
mm,
time, as you grow, you start maturing and realizing that some of the things, they don't align with what you want for yourself.
mm, mm.
So as a
And I
result,
think that's an aspect we don't talk about enough. That the education that happens, for instance, at initiation schools, and how when you come back, as you mentioned, to a dynamic world, there's almost an incoherence between the two. But I want us to wrap it up because we are quickly running out of time. You have a man
okay.
that's listening right now that says, I feel like I'm not okay. I feel like my behavior hasn't been what I'm used to it being. what do I do? Where can I seek help where I will not be judged? Who can I talk to and they won't turn around and make fun of me after it? Who can I express my insecurities to and that person don't come back and use those insecurities against me? Is there a safe space I can run to instead of having this behavior that is not who I am because of my mental health and it reflecting badly on how I treat those that are around me?
Yeah, in closing, what I can say is that being strong, to all the men out there, being strong does not mean suffering in silence. True strength is recognizing when you need support and having the courage to reach out. And no matter how difficult things may feel right now, help is always available and healing is possible. It doesn't matter how many traumas you've been through, how many life challenges you've encountered, and you don't have to walk the journey alone. As a result, we do have, for those who cannot reach out to private consultation, like seeing a clinical psychologist, your counseling psychologist, or even your registered counselors. We've got also our government institutions like your clinics, where
Yeah.
I know from time to time there will be counselors there, there will be social workers, there will also be psychologists that are being circulated, and they rotate in all those clinics. Just try and reach out and go to your nearest clinic to have an appointment made for you. And for those of you, because issues of mental health, it's like a taboo, where the moment the man comes and say, I need to see someone. Also try and find within your circle the people that you can trust and share with. Also for men, we know it's easy for men to relate with other things. You see a group of men happy and drinking together and doing all these social things together. They also need to build a culture where it's okay to also share something besides something fun, or going out to a club, for example. Create a
Mm,
community also as men for yourself to try and support each other. And for those who are in intimate relationships, those who are in marriages, it's very important as women to make space for men to be who they are, because the only way you
true.
can get to experience that man, that boyfriend, that partner at their ultimate best is to allow them to heal, because you will experience the best version of them that you've never experienced before. So we need to think out of the box and not only operate from an internal locus of control to say, I think what I want for myself, I also want it for my man. And you will see
Mm,
that things will also change. But the moment we don't we leave that door closed, we can never get to enjoy our marriages, never enjoy our relationships. But when we realize that when I'm healthy, I'm able to do this and that, think of them as well, that if everything is well at home, if they are well taken care of, if they're given an opportunity to voice their challenges, it means we're going to have the best men in this house who can even do more.
true, true. Very, very important, Dr. Malebo Mashaba. I almost said Dr. Winnie Mashaba. Thank you so much for joining us for a very, very important conversation. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for hosting me.
There you go. Very, very important and significant conversation. Hey, I want to hear from you. Uh, were you ever told as a boy, and I'm sure you have, as a boy or a young man, to quote unquote man up, to be strong, or to stop crying? How do you think that shaped the way that you deal with your emotions today? And if you are a man of African descent, initiation school is a large aspect or part of what we consider being a man. You need to go through that process, especially those that are still quite traditional. Do you think that also has shaped how you view the world? And have you noticed or realized that there's maybe a disconnect from the education of initiation schools with the reality of the world and what that looks like, and how you interact with women, how you interact with other men, how you interact with yourself and your mental health? I think these are very important and interesting conversations that we never have. Going to take a quick break. We'll be back with you after this.
Soweto, it's time to stand together for justice, peace, and solidarity. Join us for the annual Soweto Walk for Gaza, taking place on Saturday, the 20th of June at 7:30 a.m. The walk will begin at the historic Regina Mundi Church and proceed to the monumentous Dlamini Mosque, bringing together people of all faiths, backgrounds, and communities in a powerful show of unity and support. Bring your family, friends, and fellow residents as we walk together for a common cause. Let your voice be heard and your presence counted. That's the annual Soweto Walk for Gaza, Saturday, the 20th of June at 7:30 in the morning, starting at Regina Mundi Church and ending at Dlamini Mosque. Together we walk, together we stand, together we show solidarity.